are you, Governor?
I'm great.
Nice to see you.
Nice
Thank you
to see
very
you
much.
both.
Thank you very much for coming in.
It's great to see you. Great to be here.
So you have some big news this week. You have a new a tax plan for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Why don't you give us some highlights from the spending and the investment side?
I'm really excited about our proposal. We filed our first budget yesterday, along with a proposal for some tax relief and reform. We also filed a piece of legislation that will create a first Secretariat of Housing and Livable Communities. That follows some work that happened a few weeks ago. We filed what's called a supplemental budget. In particular, we were looking for more assistance for the SNAP program, for school meals, and also for sheltering some of the migrants who've come in to the state. We also filed a nearly $1 billion bond bill, and that's a bill where we're seeking authorization to be able to go out and raise funds that will help us invest in needed infrastructure repair, roads, bridges, public transit, and the like, among other things. The budget does a few things that I'm really excited about. One thing that it does is make good on my campaign promise, which was to make sure that we were budgeting 1% of our total budget. It's $55 billion, but 1% will go to the Energy and Environmental Affairs Secretariat. First time ever, you know, really want to lead on climate. I think we have a huge opportunity in the state. My climate chief is in place. We also tripled the investments, the state investments we're proposing for our Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, where a lot of that innovation is going to happen. This is an opportunity for us to create a climate corridor of jobs and manufacturing all across the state. Really excited about those things. We also proposed the largest ever amount of funding for public education, K through 12 education, and that includes fully funding our Student Opportunity Act. We have significant investments in education as well for early education and child care, as well as public higher education. So we're really excited about what we were able to propose for education. In addition to transportation, we know how important this infrastructure is to all of us. There's a lot in this budget, and there's a lot in the tax package. The tax package I would describe as pretty targeted relief to some of, including some of those who need it most. We doubled the circuit breaker for seniors, so seniors who are eligible, instead of being able to benefit from a $1,200 circuit breaker, it's now up to $2,400. So that's really helpful. Close to 900,000 renters will benefit from an increase in the rental cap deduction. And I think one of the signature pieces of what we filed was something we call the Child and Family Tax Credit. This would put $600 back in the pocket of families for every child under 13, for every person in a household with a disability, and for everybody living with a senior over 65. This is real money that will go back in people's wallets and
By the way,
make
that's
a difference.
refundable, is it not? Is that
Yes.
Could you explain to people what refundable means?
Well, it's going to be off the top, and it's going to be something that, you know,
Even if you have no tax liability, to pair up the credit with, you'd still get the money.
Right, which is really, really important in this time. I mean, the other day I was over with a woman who works at the Y in Lynn, and she has 2 young boys. She works full-time, raises, as a single mom, her 2 young boys, and we talked about this. She was really excited about this credit that she would receive because that's going to mean $1,200 back for her that will help her pay for groceries, for rent and the like, for school supplies. And, you know, this is the kind of real money that I'm talking about when I talk about this particular tax credit. So it was the tax proposal was about $750 million, and about $560 million of that is money for this child and family tax credit, for reductions for renters, and for seniors. So we're excited about that proposal, in addition to what we were able to do with the budget, which includes now, for the first time ever, important revenue coming from the Fair Share Amendment.
Yeah, I have a couple of tax questions before we get to the calls. The Fair Share Amendment, you pledged during the campaign that should it pass, and you supported its passage, it would not, the money raised for transportation and education, which the ballot question targeted to, would not be used to replace existing funding, but be additional funding. Tell us what you did with the $1 billion plus out of the Fair Share Amendment, the millionaire's tax?
Yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity, and I'll say a couple things, Jim. I think, one, it was really important to me that the will of the voters be followed. People supported this because they wanted to see money going to fund education and transportation. So we called for the creation of a standalone education and transportation trust. All the money that's coming in through Fair Share should go into that. And then basically what we propose is that it be split almost 50-50 between education and transportation. In education, we did a few things. We proposed to put money towards early education and childcare. Right now, we have huge childcare costs, and there's a dearth of childcare seats right now for families. It's a huge issue in our state, and so we put significant funding proposed to go to support early education and childcare. We also proposed a really, I think, interesting program called Mass Reconnect that will run through our community colleges, making community college free to students aged 25 years and older. Free in the sense of no tuition, no fees, no charges for books, and importantly, assistance with things that are really important to people staying in school. Too many people have started community college, maybe have a few credits, but then drop out because their car breaks down. They have to pay for that. They can't afford childcare. They can't afford rent, groceries. So this will also help provide funding for some of that. And we've got 1.8 million residents in this state who would be eligible for this program. It's a pathway to opportunity, a pathway to growth. There are partners in the employment community and business community who are already looking to partner with people who avail themselves of this kind of programming. So I'm really, really excited about it and the potential.
One last tax question. You said you're targeting some of your proposed tax breaks to those who need it most. Let's talk about a couple that are targeted to people who don't need it most. The reduction in the tax from 12, I think, to 5% on short-term capital gains, and also a raising of the threshold below which it's $1 million now, it would go to 3 million. Your estate would not be taxed. Both of those, the primary beneficiaries, are not low and moderate income people, but wealthy people. How did you justify their inclusion, Governor?
Well, I think let's take each of those in turn. One, the short-term capital gains. Massachusetts is one of only 3 states in the entire country where people are taxed more for short-term capital gains than long-term capital gains. It's also not what the federal government does. And so all I'm looking to do is to make us not an outlier, to make us more consistent with the rest of the country. So that's a reduction, a proposed reduction from 12% down to 5% for short-term capital gains. You know, I'm really focused on affordability. I'm also, Jim, focused on competitiveness and where we are. And in the face of people making really real-time decisions right now about whether they're going to move to New Hampshire, move down to North Carolina, to Florida, to Texas. We had 100,000 people leave our state in the last year and a half. You know, we've got to also think about that, including businesses. But that's really about making sure that we are competitive and not such an outlier. The second part on the estate tax, you know, I just have come to a different view on the estate tax. We're dealing with such a huge housing crisis right now. And part of it is of course, the cost of housing. Property values have appreciated. And the fact of the matter is the home that you bought 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, raised your family in, has likely, no matter where you live in the state, has just, you know, really, really appreciated. And so, you know, for middle income families as well, you may well be facing a situation that estate tax, which right now kicks in at $1 million, you know, is going to have an impact. And people right now are making some decisions about that. So we did the math, we did the analysis, we looked at what kind of households would be affected by this. I proposed lifting that cap to $3 million. As I say, Massachusetts also is an outlier. Only 12 states even have an estate tax. And at $1 million, we're the lowest state in the country, we have the lowest cap in the country along with the state of Oregon. So, I understand it's a subject of debate, but honestly, I am focused on affordability and I am focused on competitiveness and making sure that, residents and families are able to grow and thrive here in the state.
Just one other tax thing, and then we'll shut up and get to the calls and the text. But
I hope not.
We have a big problem.
I'll hold you to that, Margery.
We have a big problem with groundwater pollution, lake, ocean pollution. Tell us what you're doing, what you propose for septic systems.
Yeah, this is among the other pieces of the tax proposal. We also included a tax credit for things like dairy farmers, who right now are subject to tremendous price volatility, for live theater, again, as a big proponent and supporter of the arts and culture, as a matter of tourism and as an economic driver, as well as the fabric of community, right? We think this live theater credit is going to be really, really important for a lot of our smaller production houses. And we proposed a tax credit for Title V, which is just for septic systems. So important. We see what's going on now in the Cape in particular, but around the Commonwealth, people have a need to upgrade, but it costs money. And so
Thousands.
we wanted to provide this tax credit as a way to help families do that. It's expensive to replace your septic system. And so we wanted to provide some help along
Double
the way.
to 12,000 is what I understand?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And a lot of systems, what is it, 25?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
30K
big lot of money.
for a septic system. And so we hope this tax credit will go a long way. Speaking of though, matters related to pollution and the environment, one other thing I proposed in this budget was the creation, first time ever, of an environmental office on equity, environmental justice office that would include people located around the state to work in environmental injustice communities that have borne the brunt of the climate crisis and pollution for far too long, and now should be part of moving us forward. And the goal is to work directly with communities, the state and communities. And so I'm excited about that kind of program.
Speaking of, the first caller is from Weymouth, and she is Margaret, and she's on with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Hi, Margaret.
Hello. As an educator, I wanted to thank you first for your support of continuing people to go to community colleges. But what I'm calling about is the major fire at Clean Harbors on February 16th. This is the largest hazardous waste collection site in New England. And there was a major fire, and hazardous waste leaked into the air. And there was a near miss that only 7 days later was a proposed maintenance release of 54,000 cubic feet of methane from the compressor station.
Margaret, what's your
which
question?
Is very nearby.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
So,
What's your question for the
okay.
Governor, please?
My question is, will you support a regional agency to monitor the 10 flammable industries that are all clustered right at the Four River Basin?
Thanks, Margaret.
Well, Margaret, always good to hear from you. And let me think about that. Let me take that back to our Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, as well as our climate chief, and let's think that through. Certainly, monitoring these situations and also being there to bring accountability in these situations is incredibly important. So, interesting idea, Margaret, and I'm happy to take it back to the team.
Jester, I think that's your name. In Marlborough, you're on with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Hi, Jester.
Thank you. Maura Healey, I do want to thank you as well for all you've done so far. My question is in regards to public transportation. I do hear a lot on the T, and I do agree on a lot of the points, but I'm also concerned about regional transportation authorities, most notably the MWRTA and the WRTA. For those who do transfer in between, say, the commuter rail and buses, what are the plans to make it more streamlined?
Well, Jester, I'm really glad that you asked that question. One of the things that we've done in our budget proposal, which I think is also new, is to basically say, hey, we're a whole Commonwealth, we're a whole state, and we need to support investments in public transit around the state. It's not just the T, it's not just the commuter rail. It's our regional transit authorities and buses. It's our bike lanes. It's our walking modes. It's a range of modes of transportation and regions around the state. So I totally hear you. It's one of the reasons we proposed in our budget strong investments in our regional transit authorities. It's why we've supported the projects that are contemplated or some are underway, including things like West East Rail, because we need to bring that kind of public transit, robust public transit around the state. We also, of course, as a first matter of business, make sure that we have a system that is safe and reliable. And right now, we know there are way too many problems with the T. And we are working on that. I've said about hiring a general manager and a transportation safety officer. That will be announced soon. It doesn't end there because we need to build out a whole leadership team there, as well as support the men and women who are there already doing the work day in and day out. The fact of the matter is we're several hundred, close to 1,000 slots right now at the T. And these are bus drivers, dispatchers, operators, people who can work on safety issues. So my call to the public is, this is a great time for public service. If you can step up, come to work at the T, I promise you, Secretary Fiandaca and I are really committed to doing everything we can to support folks there, because we're not going to have a functioning economy until we have a really solid public transit system.
At the mic at the Newsfeed Cafe at the library is Gia. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, sir.
Hi, welcome to the show. You can call me Jim, but thank you for being
Nice to
so
meet you.
respectful. You too.
So I'm currently a senior at Barnstable High School, and I think it's really important when students' voices are heard. So my question was, how do you guys ensure that active student voices are being heard when you guys are making decisions for the school systems?
That's great. Nice to meet you, Gia.
Thanks for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
coming up. You just happen to be in Boston today?
Yeah, we're on a field trip here today for
Oh,
my
really?
creative writing class. Yeah.
Oh, there you
great.
go.
What are you seeing?
We were just doing research project for the class, so we came here to learn more about the systems that they have and all the books that they were offering.
That's great. Here at the Boston Public
Yeah.
Library, right? Aren't we? You probably know this, but Massachusetts Gia is home to the first public school
Yes.
in the country, also the first public library.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know where that is?
Not
No.
exactly. No.
How many people know where it is? It's not Boston, even though Boston has a tremendous public library and public library system. It's actually in Franklin. But it's great to see you. And I'll tell you, Gia, we are so committed to empowering younger voices. You are the energy, you are the movement, whether it's on matters related to climate and the environment, whether it's on matters related to civil rights and democracy, reproductive freedoms, LGBTQ equality, gun violence. It is incredibly important that we hear from you. So with each council that I set up and establish, and I might even have a youth council of my own, and maybe you should be on it. We want to make sure we're hearing the voices of younger people, because it's not about your future, it's about your now, and you deserve to be heard. We will be better with your voices at the table. And I just encourage, are you registered? You don't have to answer this, but
Yes,
those
you
of
do.
you,
Yes, you do.
get yourselves registered to vote. Get yourselves registered to vote. It really matters. This is your democracy.
Wait a second. You're also supposed to say, even if you're not old enough to vote, under the Deval-Patrick administration, 16 and 17-year-olds can register so that they're ready to vote.
So that
you
they're
go.
ready to vote.
Exactly.
That's right. Thank you, Jim.
My
What a
pleasure. That's why I'm
pro-democracy
here.
force here.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Gia,
thanks
you're
to
great.
meet you, Gia.
Thank you.
We have
And
another-
good luck with the rest of school. Okay, you guys are great, and that's why our administration we've made a big bet on you and a huge investment in you. Really never seen for proposed funding for public higher ed.
We have another question from the audience. I noticed all these red T-shirts around here, and I know that the Moms Demand Action, they're a group that involved with gun rights, and we have Ann from that organization. Thanks for coming in, and go ahead, ask your question to Governor Healey.
Oh, thank you for taking my question. Our full name is Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, so that's what we work towards.
Great to see you, Ann,
Thank you.
and all the moms.
And my question is about ghost guns, which are an emerging problem for reducing gun violence all over the country, including in Massachusetts. They're becoming the preferred weapon of criminals. And so my question to you is what your comments are on that, and would you support legislation that regulates ghost guns?
Absolutely. not only regulates, bans ghost guns. I mean, that's what we need to do. We need to ban ghost guns. And you're right, Ann, that ghost guns have emerged over the last few years as a really serious issue in states across this country. And these are not traceable. And, we need to do everything we can to get rid of them. And there's legislation filed, which I support. I supported as Attorney General. I will continue to support as Governor, and I'll make sure that my Secretary of Public Safety and Security is doing everything that he can and the team can to work on this issue. I commend the tremendous advocacy of Moms Demand Action and your incredible perseverance here. You made a huge difference. You will continue to make a difference. We need to do everything we can to reduce gun violence in this country, and certainly getting rid of ghost guns, banning ghost guns, and holding those accountable who are trading, who are ordering, who are shipping, who are assembling those very, very dangerous products. That's important too.
Thank you, Ann, for participating. We appreciate it. Governor, we were talking to Judge Gertner, who preceded you in that spot about 10 minutes before you got here. And we were talking about this Judge Kaczmarek from Texas, who is the judge appointed by Trump, who has a history. The major issue in his professional life is being not missing an opportunity to try to limit or eliminate the right to reproductive freedom. There's a case before him about the medical abortion pills. And the question I wanted to ask you, and we know what your position is, but the question I want to ask you is, before he's about to make a decision any day, apparently, Ron Wyden, who's the United States Senator from Oregon, said the other day that his advice to the President of the United States was, if Kaczmarek rules against these drugs, the President of the United States should ignore the ruling of the court, and the only ruling he should comply with is if the ruling is affirmed at the Supreme Court. Let's assume Kaczmarek does what people fear he'll do and outlaws these pills, and he has a nationwide injunction, which he has the power to issue. Do you follow Ron Wyden's advice and just say we're not honoring this ruling because we believe it's outside the Constitution?
Yeah, I just think it's really sad. Here we are, March 2023, Women's History Month, and we are dealing with people like this judge and other forces out there that want to take us backwards. And unfortunately, we are living in a post-Roe America. It means that states like Massachusetts need to do everything we can to lead in this area, to protect patients, to protect women, to protect providers. This is incredibly important, and we have been fighting that very case in the district court. You're right, it won't end there. We'll see what happens, but I guess I leave it to the Biden administration to do what they need to do.
Well, what if they do nothing? You vouched throughout your campaign, virtually every stop, that you would do whatever you had to do to protect the right to choose. If Joe Biden does nothing, would you say within our borders we will not comply with the judge's order? I'm
going to do everything I can to make sure that women have access to needed care. Obviously, I can't judge an opinion without seeing it. Let's see what the parameters of it say. But we've got to do everything we can in Massachusetts to find a way to make sure that women have access to needed care, including medication-assisted abortion, which is safe, which is proven. But of course, none of this is about the science. None of this is about the data. All of this is about a really nefarious effort to take us backwards and to further undermine the rights and empowerment of women across this country. And as governor, I've said loud and clearly that I'm not going to allow for that or stand for that, and I will do whatever I can within my power, Jim, to make sure that women have access to medication-assisted abortion or any other kind of reproductive health care that they need.
Do you consider it within your power to say, I'm not going to obey this court order because I believe it is violative of the Constitution?
Well, the court order is not, I don't know that it's going to apply to Massachusetts.
Well, no, he says he has the power, and judges say he has the power to issue a nationwide injunction here.
Yeah, we'll see what he says. And we will be prepared to deal with it in the appropriate manner at the appropriate time. I can assure all women in Massachusetts that.
Chris from Cambridge, you are on with Governor Maura Healey. Thanks for calling.
Hey there. Thanks for making the time, Governor Healey. I'm calling about our state parkland. I realize you're inheriting this, but the DCR budget is down in real dollars by 16% with a reported $1 billion backlog, while visits to the parks are up over 30%. The DCR has all these bold vision documents to redesign historic parkways, to prioritize open space for people, to provide better sustainable regional transportation options, like you were just mentioning, which is a key part of tackling climate change. But here in Cambridge, some of our Memorial Drive paths are so sorely in need of repair that they're impassable by somebody in a wheelchair, let alone a bike. Would it be possible for somebody in our group from the Memorial Drive Alliance to discuss more with somebody from your office to think about these issues together, to think about how we can, design these parklands for people and for getting around better?
Oh, absolutely. I'm so glad you called in, Chris. And hang on the line. Give us your number. One of the things that are historic 1% proposed investment in the budget in energy and environmental affairs is one of the things that will help is DCR, because that's an agency within that secretariat. And I'm a big proponent of outdoor space, of parks. I think especially through COVID, we had a newfound appreciation of the importance of those spaces, whether they're in rural or urban communities. So Chris, would love to be sitting with your folks, hearing more about what can be done. But believe me, I am absolutely committed to having the resources for the maintenance, for the cleanup, for the staff, to make sure that we have the most robust public park, public space operation in the entire country. And clearly we have some work to do.
Chris, don't go away. Stay on hold. We'll get your contact information and give it to the governor's staff.
Governor, speaking of the DCR, Paul from Worcester wants to know why the DCR apparently, according to him, has banned swimming at Comet Pond, supposedly due to safety concerns, designating Walden Pond as the only freshwater pond safe for open water swimming. Do you know about that?
I don't, and I don't know if people are swimming today or not, but there's a lot of learning on this job, 8 weeks in. I'll tell you, if we take his contacts, we'll look into it.
Okay.
And again, I just express my commitment to doing everything we can as an administration to making sure, whether they're swimming areas or hiking areas or rinks or playgrounds, that they are open and accessible and safe and clean for all our residents.
Of course,
to
a lot
enjoy.
of them, because they can't get new septic tanks yet, are polluted, and they're
My tax
shut
credit.
down. Yeah,
My tax
that's
credit.
right. Shut down because of cyanobacteria, which is really depressing.
Yeah.
We have to take a break, but
we
before we
take a
do,
break?
I just
Okay.
Escher and Beverly. I think she believes or he believes that your job means you address everything. We moved to Beverly in June from D.C., an area known for its lack of consideration, whatever that means. We love calling Massachusetts home, except, Governor, for shopping center parking lots. Why can't people put the carts where they belong?
Oh, my God.
There ought to be a law. You have enough courage to take this on?
Well, in terms of proposals out of the gate, I appreciate the frustration, right? When you're pulling into park and then there's a cart there and then your car gets dinged and it rolls into the bumper or the car. I completely appreciate the frustration.
Well, you going to do anything about it or not?
Well, you know what?
She's going to go out there on Saturday.
I've been working on the budget right now, and my job is to help implement the laws. I don't necessarily get a chance to make the laws, but
Gotcha.
I'll make sure that the good folks in the legislature are aware of the parking lot concern.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Maybe
Escher,
Escher
thanks
and
for your text.
Beverly could take up a little side job, go out there and go return all the carts himself or herself, whatever it is. Okay, we're talking to the governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. We're going to keep talking to her after this quick break. We'll try to get to as many calls and texts as we can at 877-301-8970. We want to say we are streaming right now on youtube.com/GBH News and facebook.com/GBH News. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Margery. We're live at the Boston Public Library for an unusual day. We're usually not here on Thursdays, but the governor wanted to be here, so we're happy to be here. She's here for Ask the Governor until a few minutes after 1 o'clock. During the break, by the way, she was drafting legislation on parking lot carriages, which I thought was really, talk about responding to the constituency. If I may, someone sent in I think it was a text, I'm not sure what it was, about the situation in Brockton, where a transformer fire at Brockton Hospital turned into a 10-alarm response as firefighters from across the region rushed to help fight it. Since then, this is the key part, Brockton Hospital has been offline, leaving Good Samaritan the only major emergency room open in Brockton. Are you involved in this at all?
We are, and members of my administration were on the ground and on scene at the outset. A lot of conversations with folks, not only at Brockton Hospital, of course, but throughout the Brockton community. A lot of people have been called in and called upon to do more, sometimes with less right now. I think you're seeing the strain at Good Samaritan right now, where so many patients are now being seen. In fact, Jim, I'm going to be down there. As soon as I leave here, I'm going to Brockton today. And, it's important to be down there. We're going to stop by the firehouse and thank the firefighters who responded to that terrible and unfortunate event. Also, we're going to be stopping at urgent care where a lot of people who would have been seen for appointments at the hospital are now being directed. But, obviously this is a situation where you're relying on tremendous support from state officials, from the federal government, also from other providers in the community, and a lot of people have stepped forward. So we're really mindful about what's happening both to the patient population down there, also to the workforce, because there are a lot of people, a lot of jobs there, and we need to make sure that things are handled as expeditiously and as thoroughly as possible. So I'll have more when I get back from Brockton.
Jim Braude, I see the text from Peter in Belmont. He's on your favorite subject.
What is it?
Well, I'll read it. Governor Healey announced during a campaign for governor that she could open all of Massachusetts' notoriously secret government documents to the public. She's recently retracted that promise. Stage will only open state documents selectively. Please ask the governor to explain and justify her change in policy. This is a thing in Massachusetts where governor's records, legislature's records, branches of government, judiciary, the whole three branches are under this basic veil of secrecy.
Well, there's a law out there and a court decision that gives that privilege to the judiciary, the legislature, and the administration, the governor's administration. What I have said is that I am going to work to be as transparent as possible and treat the administration as I treated my administration as Attorney General. So we have received public records requests. I have produced calendars, travel logs, and the like. I've said that we're going to evaluate, with each request that comes in, but the instructions to my team have been, let's be as transparent as we can. And there are certain instances as governor where I'm not able to provide all information to the public, but I am going to look to be the most transparent governor that the state has ever seen when it comes to documents. And also, Peter, I think, over the last 8 weeks, hopefully folks have seen I've made myself as available as I can be to the press, following meetings, following events. I'm out there talking to reporters, available for interviews. My team is as well, and I think that kind of communication transparency with the public is really important.
Hey, Governor, if we can stay on that Peters thing for 1 minute. You were with us on December 20th, it appears. I asked you, these are my words, will you confirm you will not claim an exemption from public records law as governor? Will you support legislation that at least cuts back whatever exemptions the legislature and judiciary believe they have? Your answer were 3 words, yes and yes. And then the Globe writes, I guess a couple of days ago, saying that you denied the bulk, I'm reading from the Globe, the bulk of a Globe request for basic records, things like what you just mentioned, the governor's daily calendar, a log of her travel, a log of calls. And when you were with us in January, you said the only exceptions you'd make would be for things like matters of security or personnel. Neither of those things applies to that which the Globe said you failed to release. What's up?
The Globe got that wrong. As I just said, we produced our travel logs and our calendar entries. There are certain exemptions that may apply in a given instance. And
Can you explain what that is? Can you explain what your policy is in your own words so that people don't misconstrue it about public access to information in your office?
I think public access is really important, and I'm going to do everything I can to be as transparent with the public as possible, both in my words, my actions, my availability, my accessibility to the media and to the public. It's why I like to show up and actually be with the public in places like this. I could just be over the studio, but I like to be able to hear directly from constituents. And it's also true that I stand by what I said, and that I was not going to take a position that Lambert applies to everything. And I'm really trying to be consistent about that. It is true that from time to time, there are certain things in my records that, potentially implicate, I guess, my security and the like, and I just have to be mindful of that. But, my promise, my commitment, it's not just by me, it's by the whole team, is to be as transparent as possible. And, we may not be able to produce everything, but that's certainly going to be the default.
Let's go to Charlotte and Ipswich. You're on with the Governor of the Commonwealth, Maura Healey. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Governor. Thank you so much for taking our questions.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi. I'm calling to say that I support the 3A housing law, MBTA housing, that requires 175 cities and towns to zone for high-density housing near train stations. But I'm very concerned that not one of those units has to be affordable, and not one unit has to be energy efficient. And so it seems right now that that law is at odds with your own priorities and agenda. And I'm just wondering whether you're planning to change the guidelines.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Charlotte.
it.
Make it less, sorry.
No, we get it. We understand. It's a good question.
Yeah, no, I think I get it. And you know what? I'm so glad you called, Charlotte. Let me say a couple things. That was a law that came into being before I was elected. It's a law I support. You know, I think the fact of the matter is we need more housing around the state. We're not going to drive down costs until we drive up production, and we just need to do more. And one of the ways we do that is we incent communities to develop more, particularly around public transit hubs. And that is also going to be better for our environment because people would be able to live and walk to public transit, not keep cars on the road and keep burning up fossil fuels and polluting our climate. Now, when it comes to guidelines and implementation, this is the subject of live discussion right now. As some may know, our fabulous Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll is point on this. We recently filed yesterday the legislation creating that Secretariat of Housing and Livable Communities. Our budget included significant investments in housing, particularly for some of our gateway cities. There's a program, it's called the Housing Development Incentive Program, and it basically gives money to our cities and towns to help them develop housing, including market rate housing. And we increased the cap on that from $10 million to $50 million. We're really hoping that that helps. We've got cities with development projects in the works. They just need a little bit more to get over the hump and get it done. And so that's another way we're going to grow. I would say to Charlotte, you know, as somebody who is deeply invested in addressing issues of climate, dealing with resilience, sustainability, energy efficiency and the like, we should look for every opportunity to make sure not only are we building units that people can actually afford, but units that are going to also help us meet our climate goals.
You know, one of the things, Governor, and thank you, Charlotte, is that we've been jealous through the years, Margery and I, that Channel 5 has that morning show that Janet Wu used to be on where they get the quiz politicians, and we don't do this. We got one for you. You ready? Good. I'm glad you're ready.
You went from Ben Jealous to Janet Wu. I was just taking a sip.
To you.
To me.
Continue.
Okay,
You can think. So today's March 2nd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It is the birthday
Score.
of my younger daughter,
Oh, happy
Dr.
birthday.
Seuss. And
See ya.
if you can name a third person next time you're here, you'll get a free Jim and Margery smug mug.
My sister-in-law,
Jessica,
Jessica
where are you,
Harriet
Jessica?
Baylor.
Where is she?
Oh,
Where the hell is she?
she
She
left.
left.
Was she here?
Forget the question.
No kidding.
Oh, no.
That
Great.
is
All
really-
right. Well, a lot of
Governor,
family love there.
That's not a good sign. she
Seriously?
left.
Well,
Governor,
it's her birthday. I would find better things to do than
Okay.
listen to
I
Okay.
don't
me.
know. She might get
That
the
was a
cut.
really artfully
It was beautiful.
phrased.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Whatever it was.
Okay.
Can
Happy
you tell
birthday,
us-
Jessica.
Happy birthday, Jessica, even though you left us in the lurch. What is what's the mission of the Council on Black Empowerment, the 30-member task force you created a couple of days ago? What are they supposed to do?
They are supposed to help me drive racial equity across the state. You know, I come to this as somebody who started public service as a civil rights attorney in the Attorney General's office. Equity has been central to everything that I've done and sought to do both as Attorney General and now as governor. I say that there's an equity lens across every single agency. And the fact of the matter is we've been dealing with disparities for far too long. They persist across all realms: healthcare, transportation, education, our justice system, you name it. And one of the things I wanted to do was to bring together a group of leaders in communities around the state. So this is a geographically diverse council of Black community leaders and activists and others who have their ear to the ground on needs within their communities and will help advise and drive policy and action out of our administration. It's as simple as that. It's called the Black Empowerment Council for a reason. It is about, yes, addressing disparities that exist that we have got to rectify and remedy. It's also about lifting up the joy and the vibrancy of our Black community here, which is not a monolith either. So many different communities and wonderful things happening. And it's also about lifting up and amplifying the resilience, the joy in Black community across the state. And we thought it appropriate to announce and form and actually convene just a few days ago during what was Black History Month. And, as governor, I have also said that Black history is American history. And in the face of certain governors around this country, once again, looking to take us backwards and tear us down and tear us apart, we are going to be proud and grateful to Black community here in Massachusetts and find ways to celebrate and support.
That's the voice of Maura Healey, the governor of the Commonwealth. She'll be with us for another 15 minutes. Our number is 877-301-8970.
Governor, you addressed some of these problems in your budget, but I didn't realize until I read the story in the Globe, and as of February, approximately 2.3 million people are enrolled in the state's Medicaid program. It's gone up since before the pandemic. The Globe is reporting that approximately a third of the state's population is about to have to re-enroll in mass health. And officials think that this will remove approximately 300,000 people from the state-sponsored health insurance. So I don't know what this means. Are they going to have no health insurance, or what's going to happen here?
This is a big deal, and it's something that I knew was coming when I became governor. The fact is that throughout COVID, a lot of people were allowed to enroll in Medicaid health insurance around the country. And now that the federal government has essentially ended that public health emergency, that stops, and it comes time for people to get into the right plan. So for many, Mass Health may continue as their insurance provider.
That's income linked,
So,
right?
I'm sorry?
Is Mass Health income linked?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But for another group, they're going to have to move, to shift to other insurance. And so what we've done as a state is to make sure that our Health and Human Services, which is the agency responsible for this, is working very closely with a wonderful organization I know you know, Healthcare for All,
Yep.
to do really targeted outreach to people to let them know this is happening and then to help them get on the right insurance product. And so it's going to take, and it has taken time. We've hired a lot of folks to help with that process, also working with Healthcare for All. It's not going to mean that people are not going to have insurance. It's going to mean, though, that some people will have a different kind of insurance.
In a related question, we were talking to Corby Kummer, our food guy, the other day about the nightmare with SNAP benefits as of yesterday because of the change in the federal rules. I think I got this right, in your supplemental budget, there was money to sort of ease the transition back to the lower level. Could you describe what you're doing or what the state's doing as a result?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was meeting with other governors and the president, actually, and members of his administration. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that the federal public health emergency was ending, and as a result, certain programs were going to end. And for a while, the federal government has been providing this SNAP benefit, and that is now ending. And so what I proposed doing through that sub-budget was providing people a little bit more of a glide path so it wouldn't be so abrupt. So that people wouldn't go from, overnight losing what's estimated to be an average of $150 a month. So that's what we proposed in the supplemental budget, and I'm hopeful that the legislature will I believe they have acted on that. And that's important. It's about building a glide path as people come off of these programs.
We just got a great text, anonymous, but the person wants to know what you're going to do to light a fire under the Department of Public Utilities to review applications for community energy aggregation. They point out, in the Globe reported about this too, it's taking it's too long to seem to do this. At the same time, they approved National Grid's rate hikes in 4 days, and all these cities and towns are in line waiting. It seems like months. I think, if I recollect, the story was a year, more in some cases, to get on these community power plans, which is good for everybody, I guess, except fossil fuel people. So what's going on?
We're going to do just that. I mean, this is something actually I've talked about for a while, and as Attorney General representing ratepayers, advocated for. We've got to speed up these reviews. And I think we saw people really hit over the last year where prices really spiked once things happened in Ukraine. And so, the communities that were on municipal aggregation plans actually were better off. And so it just shows the importance of making sure that there is timely and expeditious review, and that has been the instruction given by my secretary to the DPU.
I mean, there's a sense out there, I think, among a lot of people that the DPU is kind of in the pocket of the fossil fuel industry. Maybe too strong a way to put it, but that they seem much more inclined to approve things having to do with the fossil fuel providers than they do, in this case, to approve things that don't. Do we need to mix up that board or appoint different people or what?
Well, there are board appointments, of course, and there are staffing needs there as well. I think it's a little more nuanced than that, Margery, quite honestly. I think that when it comes to rate hikes, there's a set process by statute in terms of the timing of that. And I know wearing my other hat as Attorney General, we would be before the DPU advocating for ratepayers, but there's a particular timeline and process for that. I think we need to make sure when it comes to other functions, though, review of municipal aggregation plans, that the charge is to move through these things as quickly as possible. Another change that I want to make is around siting of facilities, and we've spent a lot of time. We've heard from a number of folks over the last few years, whether it was on the Weymouth substation or whether it was more recently in East Boston, and people are understandably really concerned about where things get sited. And as we move forward, to really shift from fossil fuels to renewables, we're going to have to build out some infrastructure to modernize our grid, to build out transmission, and to allow for the kind of electrification that we need. As we do that, we need to be really intentional about where these things are getting sited. So I've actually called for a siting board, a siting facilities board that will include membership from environmental justice communities to hopefully head off some of that. And for the DPU generally to apply that lens. Again, it's an equity lens to the work that it does.
Let's go to John in Cambridge. You've been very patient. You're on with the governor of the Commonwealth. Hey, John.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question is about the state gender diversity dashboard that I'm looking at right now. According to this, the executive branch has 42,353 employees total, 22,729 male, 19,624 female. According to this, there are 0 gender, trans or non-binary people working for the executive branch, which I find ironic since the same page says they're inclusive of gender identity and expression.
So what's your question, John? Why?
How come there are no openly transgender or non-binary people in the EOHS?
Thank you, John.
Well, I can tell you there certainly are. I can tell you too, John, I haven't seen that dashboard, so I don't know what it looks like or what went into it. I will tell you, here in the first 8 weeks, we just haven't gotten to looking at things like that. So I can't answer what is up there in terms of data. I just know that we have a number of folks who are working across government and within the administration. Certainly, I'm going to do everything that I can to support inclusivity, both with respect to people working in state government, but also through our boards and commissions and various appointments. It's really, really important to me. And representation matters, seeing is believing. I have a responsibility, both as the first woman elected in this state and also the first lesbian elected nationally as governor, to make sure that we're true to diversity and inclusivity. And I'm very proud of my cabinet, really proud of my cabinet. I think I have the most diverse cabinet in history, full of incredibly talented individuals who are willing to serve and looking to support and further the goals of diversity and inclusivity. And I would just say, John, again, particularly in this time where I see the denigration by the likes of a Ron DeSantis and others for members of the LGBTQ community, we're going to be really strong here in Massachusetts in making sure that people are protected and that they're safe and that they're respected and given all the opportunity that they deserve.
You mentioned the president a minute ago. Quickly, if you can, have you said whether or not you'd support Joe Biden should he announce that he was running for a second term?
I would support him.
You would support him.
What do you
As
think
far
of,
as I know,
what-
he's running. So I do support him.
Governor, what do you think of Ron DeSantis?
What is it my mom said?
What?
If you can't say something, I don't know. Can't say something nice. Look, my focus is on the people of Massachusetts and making this state thrive for residents, for families, for businesses. We are a great state. We have so much going for us. We talk about here we are in the hub, literally, of so much of it. Innovation, research, knowledge, enlightenment, advancement, culture, arts. We still have a couple of great sports teams in the Bruins and the Celtics. They're going to compete through the spring, my hope is. And it's just a wonderful place where, importantly, is really a cradle of democracy and a bedrock of this country. We take seriously democracy and civil rights and protecting freedoms, and that's what we will continue to live by and aspire to in the face of some out there who want to take us backwards, and that includes the likes of a Governor DeSantis. I mean, the idea of punishing people for some of the things that he talks about, this whole "don't say gay" nonsense, his positions around education, the canceling of coursework, on African American history. It's really, I think it's really shameful, and it certainly does a disservice to the residents of Florida ultimately.
Lucy from Boston, you're at the mic in the library. Hello, Lucy. How are you? Walk up to the mic, and you're with the Governor of the Commonwealth. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. I live in Dorchester, in Upham's Corner, and
Some Upham's Corner fans. Shout out.
And in this conversation, there's been a lot of really heavy stuff where it feels like our freedoms are under threat. We're waiting on these big rulings from somewhere big and out of our control. I personally, along with a lot of my friends, find a lot of joy in expressing ourselves through owning a small business or making art. And one of the things that I know is a huge barrier for people running small businesses is having the right branding and access to people who need our services, right? It's all good if we're all together as small businesses owned by women or people of color, being like, yeah, we support each other. But do we really have nothing to offer the fifth bank that is moving into Upham's Corner instead of a cafe or a bookstore or an artisan grocer, right? So what's the state's strategy for making it possible for small businesses to thrive and not just like receiving grants, receiving the things we actually are interested in, opportunities to provide for people who need our services?
Yeah. I'm so glad you're here, Lucy, and I'm glad you asked that question. And yeah, while we were talking about some things that are disheartening, as we look across the country, I hope people leave here feeling positive and optimistic about where we can go. The investments that I talked about in our budget are really exciting. You talk about empowering people. There's a whole bunch of great stuff we can do here in the state, specifically to the arts and to our artist community and our creative community, which, by the way, is an economic engine and driver. We've got to do everything we can to lift you up and support you. In my budget, I proposed the largest funding ever for the Mass Cultural Council, $25 million, and that is going to be supplemented by other funding through economic development. I've called for the creation of an office within our economic development agency that is focused specifically on our small businesses, how to support technical assistance, access, and the like. I think we should think about what you're talking about, which is how do you incent, the collaboration and the partnership between the creative community and other, entities that are building, developing, and the like. And I think there's some really cool ways to do that and to think about it. I've even gone so far as to think about, having artists in residence in state agencies. You think about what you could do at DCR. You think about what you could do even at DOT. You think about the vibrancy and what art contributes to our community and our well-being and our mental health, right? And so I think there are a lot of ways we can think creatively about the melding and the partnership between the creative community, small business, and entities, public and private, across the state. So good luck to you. What do you do for art?
I teach people how to use technology better through drawing so that they don't feel subjected to the confines of big tech.
Oh, very good. Well, interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you,
glad you're
Lucy.
here. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more quick one. Marcus is also at the library. Come on over, Marcus. And short question, if you can, since the governor's time is running.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Governor, for being here
Hi, Marcus.
and making yourself available. I'm a family therapist of over 30 years, and I currently work at a dual diagnosis center, a residential level of care for those fighting active addiction. I was just curious what the latest developments for supporting those folks in recovery, as well as the family therapy domain is not usually associated with recovery, certainly not traditionally, and yet to me it's imperative, and it stacks the deck in favor of those who are in recovery to have be on the same page with their loved ones and changing the family dynamics that might have contributed to the addiction in the first place.
I'm so glad you asked the question, Marcus, and thank you for what you do and the field that you're in. It is so important. I don't, for those dealing with substance use disorder, I really appreciate the family therapy approach. And I think that what we need to do is just find more ways to cover and provide those services. So my budget that I filed calls for far greater support for behavioral health services in a range of ways. Some of it's inpatient beds, of course, and expanding access there, but it really, and to funding our Bureau of Substance Use Disorder, of course, at a greater rate. But it also goes to covering more mental health providers. And you're speaking in the context of addiction and family needs. We have real needs when it comes to schools and the issues confronting our young people. And so it's just to say, Marcus, I believe in you and want to support the work that you do. It is really, really important. And I think for anyone going through addiction, I started this morning at a Breakfast for Rise, which was started 5 years ago to help, through public-private partnership, raise money to support those dealing with substance use disorder across a range of ways. And it's just to say this remains a really real issue for me and something that I'm committed to doing everything I can to support. And for those dealing with addiction, it's incredible stories of resilience that fight for your life literally every day. And I have great respect and regard for those in the throes of addiction, substance use disorder. And we've got to help them and those around them, because it's pretty hard to do it on your own.
Marcus, thank you. We appreciate it.
Governor Healey, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and talk with everybody today. I really do appreciate it.
Wait a second. Wait.
What?
Before you go.
What?
I want to ask you a quick.
I was almost
quick
out of here.
Almost out of here. That's right.
Let's imagine.
Thank you, Margery. It's lovely to be with you.
As I was saying, let's imagine a hypothetical public official comes to do a radio show for an hour. She has a sister-in-law, let's say, who shows up, and when her head is turned, she disappears after 2 minutes. What would you say about that relationship? I know you don't have personal experience with it. What would you say about that relationship?
That elected official probably did something to annoy her. I don't know.
Maybe
Although that elected official may not have given her a birthday gift yet either.
That's right.
So we'll see what happens later
That's
today.
right.
Well, happy birthday,
I don't
Jessica,
know.
and Governor, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.